Hello and welcome to the Manatee Glens Report. I'm Sandra Guffey, the Public Relations Director for Manatee Glens, the specialty hospital and outpatient practice for mental health and addictions in our area. Money worries affect almost everyone at some point in their lives. This time of year can be particularly stressful as bills roll in and tax day looms ahead. Money can be a problem for the wealthy as well as the poor. And we've all heard the stories of people who have won the lottery and ended up destitute, dejected, and in despair. To help us get a handle on money and stress, we're talking with Kathy Wilson, a licensed mental health counselor and the Director of Children's Services and Community Programs at Manatee Glens. Kathy, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the solution to money problems is not necessarily to just make more money, is it?
No, not exactly. There used to be a saying that you'll spend the money that you make. So no matter what you make, you end up, you spend it. So really, whether or not you have a little money or a lot of money, it can cause stress.
Absolutely. I remember some of the happiest days of my life were when I had the least amount of money in college.
True. A lot of people say that.
Yeah. So, where do we need to start? Like a good money philosophy sort of thing or sense of money?
I think that it really all comes down to, and I think as society, goes, we tend to not think of just spending what we make. We tend to, if we want to have it, we want to buy it, we buy it, and we usually just put it on a credit card or something like that. So it's your own personal philosophy of what you really want to have, what you're willing to have now, what you're willing to work for. And I think a lot of times that goes and starts at a young age, that we can start with young children and even ourselves looking at what we bring in and what goes out the door and how we can really manage that.
And that almost sounds like a budget, which can be about as nice a word as diet at times.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants to hear you're being put on a budget, but there's some value to that, isn't there? There's
a lot of value to that, and it actually is very powerful once you do it. I think that you could start small. It's not like you have to sit down in a locked area and go through every little bit of your budget or what's coming in, what's going out. But just looking at what you spend, maybe just looking at what you're spending that's below the $20. What are those little purchases? What are those things you're paying with your debit card when it's so easy just to take that out and swipe it? And maybe moving towards cash for some things, and really seeing where your money is going. And those small little things, once you do them every day or every week, add up to a lot of money in the end. So looking at that and not maybe seeing that whole picture, but looking at the little things at first.
Well, yeah, you feel it more when you're paying cash. When you swipe the debit card, it's like, oh, that's not real.
Right.
But when you actually have to lay out some cash, it begins to become like, oh, this is something I'm actually spending money on. This costs me.
Yes, yes. And you can start as little as taking money out. You know how much about what you spend on groceries every week and how much you spend on lunch or that cafe latte at Starbucks. So maybe taking that out, giving yourself an allowance, your significant other, whoever you budget with, and then trying to see how that stretches for you, and then see if you have to adjust that. Did you give yourself too much? Did you not give yourself enough? But looking at those type of behaviors.
Now, you mentioned the significant other. Money can be a big issue for couples.
Definitely.
Do you recommend they start talking about that early on in the relationship?
Oh, very early on. I think you need to look at that and know your partner's spending habits from the get-go. Know if they go off the balance on their ATM receipt. That's not exactly the true balance of their account. So you want to know: are they budgeting? Do they really balance their checkbook? Do they pay attention to when money, when their paydays coming and looking at what bills are going out and what are coming in, what money coming in. So I think you do need to talk about that and have priorities set for each other on what you expect.
Money personality, because there are people who have distinct money personalities on how they spend or save or don't spend or save.
Sure.
And that can be a real
Sure, there's people out there that feel like, it could be gone tomorrow. So they're not going to worry about, next week or next year. And then there are the savers. So, you just like the person's personality and opposites attract, we heard. A lot of times that can be great in the beginning of a relationship, but really think about that in the long haul and how you see your future and what you want to save for. When you first get married, you might be saving for a new car or a house. Once you're married and have children, you might be saving for that college education, so for your child. So you got to look at how that's going to flow with your life and whether or not you're compatible in that way.
Good idea to start talking about that and
Very
to keep
early.
the conversation going.
Yes.
Because it is stressful. What are some of the ways that we can alleviate or at least kind of move back on the stress level of money and that financial pressure that seems to be on everyone?
I think one, just knowing what you have. I really feel that there is a certain amount of stress in every part of your life that's good stress. We all work off certain stress levels, and sometimes really great ideas and ways to do things come out of stressful situations. So, working through that stress and knowing that stress is always going to kind of be there, but not letting it control your life. So really knowing what you want in your life, what your goals are as far as things you want to get, things you want to have, and then knowing how you can afford those things. Can you afford it now, or do you need to wait? And just thinking about that strategically, not just saying, it's kind of up in the air and whatever I want, I'm going to get now and I'll just deal with it later.
Well, there's a great sense of you appreciate something more if you've waited for it, if you feel like you've saved for it, you've earned it. And you don't have that if you just, it just comes.
Right, because that bill's going to come in at the end of the month or beginning of the month or middle of the month, whatever time that credit card bill comes in. Usually that's what we're doing, is we're putting things on credit that we can't afford. Back in the day, they didn't do that unless it was a major expense to live. Now we're putting things on credit cards that really, do we need it? Do we want it, or do you need it? And a lot of times that's what you need to evaluate, what your needs are and what your wants are.
I think that's important to start with children on that, because they don't quite understand the difference between need and want.
No, everything is a need. Everything they need, and you'll hear that from an early age with children, is I need that, I need it. And you really don't need it. And having them go without maybe for a day or two and then seeing if they even talk about it again, most likely they don't. That thing they saw at Target is no longer what they want. So really thinking about that delayed gratification is what we don't really see nowadays, because I think parents want to give and give and give, and they don't think about that consequence of what we're really instilling in children about money.
And then we see down the road the parents getting inundated with debt, and they don't know how to get out of it. And that weighs on them in the workplace.
Oh, definitely.
You hear, I'm sure you've heard about that. People come in that, hey, we've got a problem. If I'm an employer and I see one of my staff people has a problem, what should I do?
Well, first of all, hopefully your employer has invested in an EAP, which is an Employees Assistance Program. And there are many types of programs. We at Manatee Glens have an EAP division. I'm over that. And we basically, with the EAP, you can then refer someone for an issue. Like, they come in, it's hard not to get involved with people's personal lives at work. I mean, you do know little bits and pieces about what's going on. They might relay to you, I'm really stressed right now. My husband got laid off, or my wife has got a reduction in pay, or is only working part-time. Whatever it might be, know that there is an employee assistance program out there sometimes, or just counseling through their medical through their own medical health plan, where they can go and talk to someone about their issues. And so they both can come together with a person that doesn't have sides. They're just someone who's unconditionally, there to hear the issue and try to work out a solution with them.
Because it can be a matter of, it shows your values and what's important to you, and so it's a good conversation to have.
Definitely.
And nothing to be embarrassed about.
No.
If you find yourself, now we're living in a world where how many people have had their houses foreclosed on or short sales that never heard about before? That was just a horrible thing, like the worst thing that could ever happen, bankruptcy. But now it's becoming more commonplace, and so I think people are at least willing to talk about it a little bit.
Yes, I think so. And you shouldn't feel, it's just like with anything that is going on in your life, you shouldn't feel like you can't talk about it. And that's the stigma that's still out there about therapy in general is, oh no, we can't go to therapy. It's not that bad. And a lot of times people that do that and will go on and go to therapy, they'll get that solution up front and they'll work through what they felt it was an impossible task to work through. They can work through it with somebody guiding them. And it doesn't get to the point where you see the foreclosures or you see divorces, separations, things like that that are happening because of the stress.
Absolutely. So stress, obviously a real issue here. What are some ways to kind of alleviate that sort of stress? With going to therapy can be a start, getting into a conversation?
Yes,
you think?
Definitely talking with your significant other. If you start feeling like there's stress in that financial world and you guys aren't talking, that's the first place to start talking right then. If you have these differences that you don't see are going to be alleviated just by talking, that's maybe where you seek someone in the outside. But also just getting back on track with eating correctly, sleeping, the required amount of sleep you need a night, exercising, all those things we tend to stop doing when we are stressed.
Exactly. And you know what? When you're having these money issues, it can be a good time to force you to be a little more creative. Like, okay, let's as a family, we'll try cooking together.
Right.
We'll, instead of going to a movie, we'll go for a big walk together or a hike. And you end up getting better exercise, having more fun, and learning new things as a family. So that's back to that idea that you said, it can lead to, that kind of stress can lead to something positive.
Definitely.
Just like the saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes, exactly. And I liked, what you said about really finding an alternative to things you normally like to do that cost money. And the great thing is picnics. Cooking together. A lot of times we are so stressed and we can't cook, but we turn to those alternatives that are either unhealthy and it's just more expensive to eat out. We all know that. So look at that. Look at opportunities to be creative with your time, and then it's not about the quantity of time, it's the quality of time. So you're spending more time with the people that you love, and you're not spending money, which creates that more of that stress. Netflix. I mean, get a movie, that off of that's $1 and you return it the next day, other than going to spend $50 at the movies with a family of 4. That could be a big difference.
It can, and I think that it shows your children. It sets a good example for the children, and that's really what being a parent is all about.
True.
Helping them form some good habits now.
Right. Bring
Bring them into the solution. Let them.
And telling them, no, we can't afford that right now, and be okay with that. It's not about telling your child every nitty-gritty detail about your finances, and that's not what you want to do and worry them, but telling them, really right now we're budgeting for Christmas. Christmas is coming up next month. You don't really need that toy. Let's put it on your list. Things like that will teach them they can't just have it right away, and even if they even have their own money for it, say, why don't you save that money? You might want to buy a Christmas gift for somebody. Why don't, giving to someone else sometimes can alleviate that stress of what you're going through too. So I think really from the very beginning, working on teaching them budget, and that we just don't go and do anytime we feel like doing, because there is money cost involved in that.
Absolutely, and it teaches them your values.
Yes.
This is what we value. If you give to charity, as a family, we give this much to charity. These are the places that we want to spend our money.
Sure.
And it shows them something about what's important to them.
Definitely.
To you as a family. I remember a vacation we took once when we were kids, and my parents said, well, because we don't smoke and we don't drink, the money that we've saved in alcohol and tobacco is enough to pay for this vacation.
Sure.
And that impressed me a lot as a kid. I mean, I remember it now, and that was a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I remember putting coins in a big jar, and that was what we used for gas. And a lot of times people still do that today, you know, have a coin jar thing, and you go and you take it to the bank and you get to see how much money that ends up being. It does really instill in kids and adults even how much that adds up to when those things are, you know, being accumulated, and you get to save those.
That's kind of fun. You
Yeah,
say,
it's
hey,
fun.
save all your pocket change and $1 a day, and supposedly you end up with quite a significant amount at the end of the year. And then if you reward yourself, I always think rewards are good.
Rewards are always good. I mean, and that's in everything. You talked about diet earlier. We all know about, you know, the more you don't want to take away so much from yourself that you are feeling like you never get to have what you want to have, whether it be to eat or to buy. You want to have something set up that you feel like you've accomplished something. And I think whatever we want, whatever we do, whatever your goal is, whether it's dieting or saving some money, it's along the way, how do you reward yourself to know, you know, I've done a good job. This has been 2 weeks and I haven't, you know, spent that extra $20, and now I have $100 and I'm going to go and buy, you know, this thing I wanted. You know, it's really important.
It is. You know, one thing that I think to caution people that, okay, money is tight, they think, oh, well, I'll just play the lottery. I'll just do this. I'll go bet on the Greyhounds or something, because it's really attractive. I know Joe down the street won really big on that. And I think I could win on that. And then it sort of sucks you in. And gambling is a real addiction, isn't it?
Yes, it is a real addiction. It's a compulsion, really. It's a lot of times people have a problem with their impulse control once they've won, and it's much like other addictions in that you're chasing that high. You're chasing that one win. Generally, if you lost the first several times you go gambling, you generally don't go back because you lose.
Why?
But they set it up that way. I mean, the system is they're in business to make money. So they're going to set it up where at some point the odds are going to be in your favor and you're going to win. And then you're always chasing that again and again and again. And you're not going to get it because the house wins out and it's not your house. It's generally the house of wherever you're going. So you shouldn't use that as your backup plan. You really should talk to a financial advisor if you're really wanting to make money on the long haul. It's going to take a little bit more than just one hand at poker to do that.
Everybody dreams that this is it, this one lottery ticket. And it kills me to see people who can't afford it buying lottery tickets.
Yes.
That's just not a good financial plan.
No, if you play it for fun and you play it every once in a while with a group of people, I know a lot of people have pools, that's fun, and you see those people win, and it's a great thing. I mean, that comes its own stress and burden, like you said in your intro, but it's really great to play as long as you're not expecting to win. When you have everything riding on something like that, that's not a good plan for you. That's going to cause more stress in the end.
No. And I know financial planners who will say that their job is a lot like your job as a therapist, that they actually do as much psychological counseling, not to the extent or the depth that you do, but so much of what they're talking to people about is similar to what a psychologist or a therapist talks with people about. And it's important, once again, to go talk to somebody when you're at that level where you need some professional help if it's determining your finances. Go in and have a chat. Is it true that people are happier when they give money away?
I think it is. I really do. I mean, I think it's all subjective. Stress is subjective, but I really feel that when we give, you get more back because you really do feel like you're giving to something larger than yourself, that your $1, $2, or $100 is going with other people's money, and it's making a bigger impact than if you just did something on your own. We have so many great opportunities to give now. You know, I know everybody's out this holiday season. You go to a place, and St. Jude's is a great. Obviously, they'll say you want to give $1. You want to round out your change on your sale and give it to JCPenney's is doing that. Give it to their charity of the month, and it's great because it's very little money on your end, but as a corporation, they're giving that money, and it becomes bigger. So you feel better as you're walking away that you gave a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there, and you're really helping out.
Yes, and once again, it's a good example for children too.
Oh, definitely.
Children can learn philanthropy when they're very young, and hopefully it's a habit that they'll keep with them the rest of their lives. I see that also as far as giving is concerned, that it's becoming easier. You know, you can give online just as it's become easier to gamble and lose money. It's also been easier to give away money and to save money. They've
definitely
made it so that you can manage your finances online. And don't use that as a crutch. Like you said, if you're balancing your checkbook just by looking at your ATM receipt every day, maybe that's not your best plan.
No.
But go about and look at what you're doing with your money and show your children. Any words of caution when we look at all of this, like where you see people going wrong? Is it not talking about it enough? Is it overanalyzing? What do you see that happens?
I really think that it's a philosophy of sometimes entitlement. I mean, I think we really do feel like we deserve certain things. I mean, I think all of us feel that way. I'm not saying about just some people. I think all of us feel that we deserve certain things, and we do. I think we all probably work very hard for what we have, and we want that thing now, but our checkbook doesn't always support what we want. So it's really putting in check what we really want, how we really can go about getting it, and really understanding what you're bringing in. I think people know what they make in the general terms, but after taxes and their medical bills or whatever is coming out, they have a certain amount. And I don't know if people really understand that that's the amount they have to spend on their everyday living expenses. Really looking at, I think once you really look at it, you'd see that you have more money than you think you do. Because at the end of the month, when you're overdrawn and you're stressed about it, and you go back and look at all those little things, you really could eliminate those and not really suffer any. So it's really a good balance of knowing what you have, talking about it with the person that shares that account with you, and being able to be honest about what your needs are.
Yeah. Yep. And then again, determining, you know, if you want to go to an all cash system, it might not be too bad, at least for a month. When you see that, and you see that there's no more cash in your wallet, you got to stop.
Right,
the game is over.
And that's when you budget a little differently. You know, instead of going off your bank account, you do it with the cash in hand.
Yes. Yeah, and that's hard. And I've heard of other people that have just envelopes, very simple, you know, this is the money for groceries, this is the money for gas, this is the money, and when the envelope is empty, you're done with that. I guess you're walking.
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of people do that. Sometimes you have people have envelopes for entertainment and different things, so that you can borrow from those envelopes because that's your money. But then once you're done with that, that's what you're done with. And then what's in your account is really to pay your mortgage and your rent or your electricity, your cable bill, whatever else is out there that you need to pay. So it's hard.
And bringing up money can be difficult. Any great ways to open the conversation? I assume it's not good to go to your significant other and say, you're a loser.
Right.
That's not a good conversation opener. Any better ways you might go about that?
I think that, you know, if you're stressed out about it and you're losing sleep and you're just not feeling very, very good about it, and that person loves you, you have a relationship, you know, you should sit down with them and say, you know, I really need to talk about this. It's bugging me. I'm losing sleep over it. I'm stressed. And it might just because it's Christmas season and all those little things add up. But just say to them, let's talk about our finances. We don't have to, I'm not saying we have to change anything right now. I think that's the hardest part. People think it's going to change and they're going to all of a sudden have to give up something. But it's not about that. Just looking at it and analyzing what they're doing and seeing, okay, can we get any more money out of the situation or better route our money in different areas where it makes more sense to us, where I'm not afraid that, you know, payday is 3 days away and we have zero in our, you know, and I need to fill up my car. We don't want to be in that situation. So a lot of times it's hard to talk about, but you have to just kind of do it and get it on paper and look at it in more of an analytical way and not about blaming. The blaming game is not the way to go. Oh, you spent this month, so you don't get anything next month, or I get this. That's not the way to go. Just look at it as a whole and really work it out together.
And I like the way you open that conversation. It's making me feel this way. It's not you did this, you did it. It's
exactly.
I feel, I'm worried about. Take ownership of your emotions, and let them know how. because truly all I can address is me.
Exactly. And I always tell my kids that. I always say, when you talk about how you're feeling to someone else, they can't take that away from you. They can't tell you you're not feeling that way. That's your feeling. So you're always going to be honest when you talk like that. And it's not about blaming them. It's about really talking about how you're feeling. And I think that it will work out because they're probably having the same feelings. It hasn't gotten to the point where they feel they need to talk about it with you. Because, stress with money, a lot of times both people are feeling the same way and they're not talking about it. And lack of communication is really the downfall in a lot of relationships, is really understanding what each other, where your head is in certain areas with money, finances, and everything else that goes along with marriage or relationships.
Well, it's personal.
Yes.
I mean, when you start talking about money, you're talking a very personal area.
Sure.
And people are afraid you're going to take something away from me. You're going to take away my favorite thing. Yes. So. And we were laughing before we came in here that having too much money can also be stressful.
Yes, I don't know about that.
I'd like to, how do we find out about that?
Right, exactly. I think it's because a lot of people that do come into money, like we were talking about, they're coming into money, and there's a lot of people around them that know they're coming into money. They also are stressed about money. So you have a lot of people wanting things from you. So I think when, even if you came from money and you've always had money, people know that. So they tend to ask you, oh, can you be a part of this golf tournament? Can you give to this? Can you give to that? And you have to say no at some point. Everybody has their limit to what they can give. And like we said earlier, you're going to spend what you make. So even people that have lots of money, they have lots of expenses too. And it might not be the expenses that you're like, well, yeah, they have the Mercedes, but they might have 3 kids in college. They might be paying for someone else's living expenses, or they might be dealing with a parent that's in a nursing home. We don't know, but everybody has their own stresses. And when you're dealing with someone who even has a lot of money, they still have money issues. They're still dealing with money and how they're spending it and how they're accounting for their money as well. And they have a lot of people coming at them.
Well, and they probably feel that way, that people only like me because I have money.
Right.
And that's a terrible feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I know what it is, but I would imagine that would be a terrible feeling.
That would be a terrible feeling, right.
And so you have to learn to say no in a nice way. And I guess that's money defense. It's like we say no to our children about spending money. You say no about giving it away in a nice way.
Right. And I think everybody needs to have their priorities of what they would like to give to. I mean, if everyone has that thing that tugs at their heart, and you decide as a family, like we decided 2 years ago, during the economic stressors of what's going on, we decided what are our priorities? Where are we going to give? Our church was, up there as number one. Right. And then what are the other organizations that we really care about? Obviously, where I work, non-for-profit, I care about that. So we decided at that point where we're going to give. And then the other places that come along and ask, you just say, we made our priorities this year, keep us on your list, but this year we're not going to be able to do that. That's a
great response to that. That really does. That's a great way to end. That's really a positive note. We want to give. Giving feels good. It's a good thing to do, but know how to say not this year, but keep me on your list. I like that.
Yes.
I'll use that. Thank you, Kathy. I really appreciate your time today. And that does wrap up this edition of Manatee Glens Report. Thank you, Kathy Wilson, Director of Children's Services and Community Programs at Manatee Glens. We appreciate those insights. And thank you, the audience, for tuning in to Manatee Glens Report here on METV, where you can learn something new every day. We'll see you next time.